What's up, you subhuman deformities? Welcome back to yet another 1994 Mr. Olympia review. This time I'll be taking a look at the posedown footage and some clarification to do first. In this comparison, Porter Cottrell and Chris Cormier will appear, but for the sake of saving some time, I won't be talking about them. And obviously I will use some pics to help us when the footage isn't really all that clear. So let's end the chit chat, and without any further ado, let's get it on. And let's roll the clips. Now they're adjusting the lineup. As I said, the top six: Dorian, Kevin, Shawn, Paul Dillette, Chris Cormier, and Porter Cottrell. The first one, we have the front relaxed, and damn, here Paul Dillette needs to be first. He has perfect symmetry, incredible balance, great abs, the best structure. He is the widest and tallest in the lineup. He has also a pretty balanced torso length compared to his legs, and even the calves and forearms are comparable, so there's no way anybody in this lineup can beat him. He is the GOAT of the front relax after all. And I gotta go with Dorian in second place because he has the second best structure, and he is the second tallest, and he has the second best balance, but he has the best lats and taper. Then I will go with Kevin, even though he isn't really fully locked in this one, but he is fairly wider than Shawn, and he has better legs and better overall balance. His torso seems to be less of an issue. And as I said, Shawn Ray should be fourth, even though everybody's praising this pose for him. So let's go to the pics to see what they have to say. In the first one, there are Kevin, Shawn, and Dorian. Shawn is holding the pose perfectly, and he is showing us his perfectly chiseled abs and defined quads. Body is the narrowest, and as I said, he has a fairly long torso and short limbs. Dorian's stomach appears to be a bit distended, but his lats are bulbous, and the structure is really killing both Kevin and Shawn. Poor Kevin here isn't even holding the pose, so here is a second pic. This one from a below angle with Paul Dillette, who I think wins the pose, despite the lack of posing oil that makes him look blurrier and flatter. Then I'll go with Dorian for the reasons stated above, then with Kevin, and Shawn, again because of Kevin's superior structure. This third pick only serves as further proof to Dorian's second place. So let's go to the side relax. We can't really see the side relax. I think I'd go with Dorian, then Kevin, then Paul, then Shawn for the rear relax, for the side relax. But now let's look at the rear relax. Look at how Dorian utterly crashes Shawn Ray in this one. The taper, the thickness, the key body parts like traps, lats. It's a massacre. Same with Kevin. He fares slightly better because of his bigger structure, but there's really nothing he can do to stop him. Now, let's see the pics to judge rear relax. Now, Dorian is obviously first. Kevin here doesn't look all that impressive, but Paul fares better than expected despite his angle disadvantage. Just look at the mountainous traps and the perfectly balanced lower body. Shawn is pretty underwhelming, if I'm being honest. And and I will relegate him to 4th place. His conditioning is great, and his lats are the 2nd best in the lineup, but he lacks balance big time, especially in the lower body, and his structure is really pathetic. So I think I need to relegate him to 4th place. So let's go on with the footage. And they repeat the side relax, and I don't think I would change the order. Here is the front double bicep. Now we can't really see much from this angle. We can see and appreciate Shawn Ray's deep vacuum, and we can somewhat see Dorian's thickness, but we can also see that his stomach isn't really the best this year. Now let's go with the picks, and in the first one Shawn is 100% winning it. Good conditioning, great taper. Despite a small structure, he has great flow. He has the best biceps out of the 3, and he has good enough forearms, great quads, but 2 small calves, as I said before. Then I have Kevin. Despite a pretty poor angle, he presents the best arms overall, and he has a good taper and awesome quads. He looks though as he is holding a bit too much water, as the separation in the midsection and quads appears to be a little bit blurred. He also lacks balance, as his calves and forearms are on the small side, and he isn't really fully into the pose, so we need to have a second look at the pose. But let's quickly say something about Dorian with his injured biceps, and injury that Judge Jim Rockwell, a guy that judged many Olympias, defines as slight and not bearing whatsoever. But in this pose it bears some weight, as the main focus of the pose is the arms and particularly the biceps, and it also negatively affects the symmetry and a bit the balance, because one arm is significantly smaller than the other. His bloat is a lot less noticeable compared to prejudging, and his conditioning looks to be better, and he also looks to be bigger. In fact, we will see that Dorian in prejudging was 260 pounds, and in the finals he was 262. So 2 pounds gained and less gut. So good result in carving up. And I need a second look. Now Shawn is first, but Kevin appears to be more fragile in the second position. He looks rather small and not really conditioned and thin. His flow and taper are pretty off, and his lats look smaller and his torso longer than in prejudging. I mean, I praise his front double biceps in prejudging, and I'm not really convinced. Let's have a third look. And in this final pick, I think Paul the Lad is really nailing it. He is the biggest guy with the smallest waist and the most defined abs. He has the best taper, the best arms, quads, and overall balance. And I think he should beat Shawn Ray in this pose. But I'm not so sure that judges actually did, because Shawn is more conditioned than him. And as for the Dorian versus Kevin, this time Kevin looks way better than in the previous picture, and I think I would put him again over Dorian. Let's see the front lat spread. Now, in this Shawn Ray versus Dorian Yates, well, if you don't believe that Dorian Yates crushes Shawn in this one, well, I don't know what you've been watching as of lately in terms of bodybuilding content, but Dorian's lats are way bigger, he is way wider, his legs are more balanced, and probably present better conditioning. He seems to be more cut, even though his shape is not the best. But let's see if we can have Kevin in the picture too. Yes. Now Dorian is slightly tilted, but this is not a big problem in my opinion as of now, because we can compare Kevin with Shawn, because we already established that Dorian is way ahead of the two guys. And in this one, Kevin obviously wins. Shawn, first of all, holds the pose incorrectly in an asymmetrical way, holding his shoulder way too high, this one, and is very narrow, and his lats don't burst out of the torso like Dorian's, and nor form a great V shape like Kevin's. And Kevin also appears great with his capped delts and full chest, even though it looks asymmetrical. He has slightly worse conditioning than Shawn, and calves that don't match his thighs like Shawn, but I think they are better. But surely he is behind in terms of conditioning, but I think size and width are enough to beat Shawn in this one. I don't think I even need pictures, but here is one if you really want to. Dorian is tilted to the side, and we can see again Shawn versus Kevin. Again, I don't have any further comments to do on this one. I think I've been clear enough when commenting the video, so let's go on with the footage. And here's the side chest. The angle is still tilted. If you really wanted to judge something from here, we can see that Dorian's waistline is way more in check than in prejudging, and that he is slightly fuller and bigger overall. Kevin seems to be slightly more watery, but let's see what the pictures have to say. This one is a bit unfair to Kevin as he's not fully locked in, but his side chest we know is better than Shawn's, right? Both his chest and the arms are way better than Shawn's, other than bigger, and they also have more quality to them, and he presents better thickness and density. Here Dorian is really crushing them with overall pec thickness and density, and he is beating Kevin in the conditioning aspect and in the lower body balance. If I had to be honest, Paul would probably beat Shawn in this one in size and balance. Other than that, he is winning all the key body parts, so I think I would go with Dorian first, Kevin second, Paul third, and Shawn fourth. Now it's back time.
Turn to the rear, one leg back showing the calf.
Now, we don't have the best angle, but as I always say, sometimes even the bad angles can be helpful, and in this time they are really helpful because they let us see two things in particular. First, the thickness of Dorian's back compared to Shawn's and Kevin's, and also details from this angle that otherwise would be lost, like between the lats and teres majors, some of the lumbar spine. But it's not the best, so I will jump directly to the pictures. And in this one, there is the entire top 6, and we can see that despite Kevin stepping 3 fucking feet in front of the camera, Dorian's back is just way too much for him or anybody in this pose. Same for the lower body. The ripped hamstrings and enormous calves are only rivaled by Paul the lats. But if you talk about back and Paul the lat, you talk about two parallel lines that will never meet, because as we all know that this was his biggest weakness. We have to talk about Kevin. If I'm being honest, Kevin's back is worse than Cormier's in both details and insertions, but he has better taper and is way bigger. I think he was around 245 in 94, and Chris was under the 240 zone, but we will see that better in the contest report. So this leaves Dorian with only Shawn Ray as a possible contender in this pose because he has the second most detailed back and the second best balance and conditioning, and also the second best insertions overall. He has very, very low lats. So, to recap, I will go with Dorian first, obviously, Shawn second, Kevin third, and Paul dead last. Not even fourth place, just dead last. Now let's jump back to the video and it's real aspirate time. And now, first thing we can note here, and at this point it will sound like a mantra, but Dorian's back is way ahead of the field in terms of size, thickness, density, muscle separation, lats, traps, and as mentioned before, his hamstrings looked really ripped and his calves appear to be the best, especially in comparison to Shawn's small calves and Kevin's thin calves and soft hamstrings. Now, as for the second place, I would go with Kevin, because despite the subpar conditioning compared to Dorian and Shawn, I mean, Shawn has really ripped hamstrings, glutes, and detailed back, but this is a width pose. Width and taper beat conditioning and detail in this pose. So I would go with Kevin second for these reasons, and I would go with Shawn third because I know that Chris Cormier didn't beat him, even though his back will be in the next years better, but not in 1994. But I'm sure that he beats Paul Dillette. Look at that, he is practically taperless and his lats are like non-existent, but he has a great lower body. Let's give him that. Good job, cameraman. This is a great shot. Now it's side triceps time. We only have this angle and Kevin is like fucking around, so I'll compare Shawn and Dorian. In this case, as I said in prejudging, Dorian is way thicker from the side, has even better triceps themselves than Shawn, and bigger delts. Overall better side leg, and he is kicking back the calf with that massive full execution. Shawn Ray, on the other hand, looks to me slightly less ripped than in prejudging, and overall he seems to be undersized and a bit flat from the side. I'm not really liking it. Now, as I said, Kevin is dicking around, so I can't really see him, so judging from the prejudging pick, I would put Dorian first, Kevin second, and Shawn third. And if I'm being honest, probably Paul Dillette here could beat Shawn Ray. I mean, look at that godly tricep and incredible side leg. But we don't have a clear picture of that, so I would just go with the prejudging order. Now, let's see our final pose, the abs and thighs. And as always, we can't judge anything clearly, so I think I'll have to jump straight to the picks. In the first one, it's a three-way matchup with Shawn, Dorian, and Kevin. But let's be honest, Kevin is really far from being fully locked in, so we'll take a look at Shawn versus Dorian. And in this case, as it was in prejudging, Dorian possesses greater ab definition. He also possesses better teardrop and calf and display, and way better taper in the upper body, so it has to be Dorian over Shawn. Now, let's go to the second one, and the first thing I see is Paul Dillette's awesome size and aesthetics. He has the abs comparable to those of Shawn Ray, a better taper, and the best quads in the picture. But considering his conditioning deficit, I don't think the judges actually gave him the pose over any of the top 3 guys. And here we have round 2 of Dorian versus Shawn, this time from the side. And in this variation, Shawn displays more detail in the core region, but seems to be in a size deficit. And to all the Dorian haters, tell me where the fuck Dorian's gut is. I don't see it. I see chiseled obliques and abs, and I see a great side leg. Kevin looks great too here. Great quads, abs, even if he isn't really fully locked in. To recap, in the front relax, I've got Paul Device first, Dorian second, Kevin third, and Shawn fourth. In the side relax, Dorian, then Kevin, then Paul, then Shawn. In the rear relax, I reconfirmed that order. In the front double biceps, I have Paul first, Shawn second, Kevin third, and Dorian fourth. In the front lat spread, I've got Dorian, then Kevin, then Shawn, then Paul. In the side chest, Dorian, then Kevin, then Paul, then Shawn. In the back double biceps, I've got Dorian, then Shawn, then Kevin, then Paul. In the rear lat spread, I've got Dorian, then Kevin, then Shawn, and then Paul. In the side triceps, I would go with the same order. In the abs and thighs, I'd go with Paul first, Dorian second, Shawn third, and Kevin fourth, even though the judges probably put Paul in fourth place just because of the conditioning factor. So, here it is, the second part of my 1994 Mr. Olympia review after one fucking entire month. Next episode will be the scorecards and report review to better immerse ourselves in the context of this Olympia that took place 27 years ago. Like and subscribe and do the other stuff if you want to survive the unavoidable wreck. I will lunch on you if you do otherwise. Peace.